All right, guys.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, it's his job to keep the power on. That's why he chooses Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so he can rise to every challenge. Call, click, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I don't know where that.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, it's his job to keep the power on. That's why he chooses Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so he can rise to every challenge. Call, click, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I don't know where that.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, it's his job to keep the power on.
One second. I have no idea where this ad is coming from. Oh, it's coming from YouTube. Hilarious. I had a YouTube tab open. All right. One second. We're just about back here, guys. Okay. Funny technical glitch to start us out. That's great. It was an ad from the live stream itself. Tapping in. Okay. Hey guys, welcome. Welcome. Sorry, getting hijacked by my own tab. Today we are going to be talking about Zeus's children, Zeus's scandal, his promiscuity, all those good things. I have, as usual, I have a nice song to start our live stream out, and I'm thinking about doing some more live streams. So if you are enjoying these and want to get involved, or want me to do more of these, please let me know. Get involved in the chat. Let me know today how you're liking these formats. I'm thinking about doing much more of these rather than the really intensive 20-minute documentaries, but I'm also considering doing a 2-hour documentary. I've got a couple of topics in line, and I'm not sure just what I want to do with them yet, but I am considering taking the plunge into a full-scale documentary. But for the time being, I think I'm shifting more towards these live stream formats. So I would like to get your input on that. I need to reset this. We've got a lot to cover today. I actually had to split this presentation into two because it was too long. This idea of Zeus as cosmic creator. In our last stream, we started talking about Zeus as the demiurge and Zeus as the proto-logos, as the nexus by which all of the cosmos is created. We're going to keep following that train of thought, and we are going to follow what the Orphic Rhapsodies say happened cosmologically from their perspective after Zeus swallows Phanes and becomes the entire universe. We're going to see what he reproduces. Now, in the last one, we talked about how he wed the different Titanesses and how he integrated with that Titanic lineage and started to produce. Well, what did he produce? He produced children. And this goes into talking specifically about what Zeus and his promiscuity really means. One of the things that Plato talks about, in the Republic is he doesn't want to have poets in the new society he wants to build. What's the reason behind not wanting poets? It's not that Plato hates art. It was that Plato, in particular, didn't trust people to understand what the poets were talking about. And I think that's very true. We see that really often now. People over literally reading something when it comes to Greek mythology. We see people talk, I see people talk all the time, well, Zeus is a bad guy because he's out there cheating on Hera. Well, first of all, what morals apply to us don't necessarily always apply to the gods, which is not always the case. But also, what we're talking about here is an allegorical nature of these texts. These things were meant to teach us a deeper lesson, not necessarily be taken at face value. So today we're going to be taking a look at all of that promiscuity, the scandal of Zeus, and see what the guy was really up to. And to get us started, since we wasted about a minute and 30 seconds of me rambling, I will kick us off with our song for this live stream. Here we go.
In the depths of night's council, a strategy unfolds. Not lust, but cosmic wisdom guides the god of old. 6 orders of being, emanating from one. The dance of creation has only begun. First swallow fames, brought all within, then joined with necessity where fates begin. Not random unions, but cosmic design. Each child a principal part of the divine. With embassy crafted the laws of all things. Justice and order and peace that she brings. Not passion, but purpose in every embrace. Each union completes the structure of fish. They call him the wanderer, call him unfaithful, but his vision runs deeper than they'll ever know. Every child a cosmos, every birth under water, the architect's plan where all rivers flow. With hurricane fire, craft in the forge, with Leto came light to illuminate the gorge. Not conquest, but creation at the heart of his ways. Each divine offspring reveals a new phase. Boundaries and bridges, mediators between the visible world and what can't be seen. His head split open, wisdom took form. Athena emerged, perfect and warm. Recognize the boundaries, accept the cosmic law. Every child a cosmos, every birth a new order. Navigate between the worlds as the cosmos realigns. The 12 were established, the cosmos complete. Each natural law with the guardian discreet. Not random pantheon, but order design. The Dodekatheon, where powers align. But his greatest compassion was yet to unfold for the children of Ash. With their hearts so cold, born of titans, yet sparked with divine. Needed salvation, the fullness of time. Call him the wanderer, call him unfaithful, but his vision runs deeper than they'll ever know. Every child a cosmos, every birth a new order, the architect's plan where all rivers flow. With Personified joined, the circle complete. The divine child born, our salvation sweet. Dismembered by titans, scattered apart, but Athena preserved his still beating heart. From ashes we rose, both titan and God. Our nature divided, our souls greatly flawed, but through his blessed son, he sets us all free from passion and suffering for eternity. So judge not the unions of the cosmic king. Each divine embrace makes the universe sing. Not lust but compassion guided his hand. For us the fragments, he designed the grand plan. In Zeus's cosmic children, our path is revealed. Through their divine functions, our wounds can be healed. From fate to Dionysus, the circle is drawn for the liberation of souls at the breaking of dawn.
All right, guys. Little fun song to get us started talking about Zeus and his children. Thanks for joining me. This is going to be a fun one. Like I said, got to break it into 2. But before we get started, live stream. Support the live stream if you want. Support the live stream if you care about the material that I'm putting together. It does help me keep this thing going. I don't like doing the whole ask thing, but like, comment, super chat, tip, whatever you feel is appropriate. I'm not going to ask a lot more. Just going to say right at the beginning, support it however you feel. Share it. Let's get started. Today, I want to talk about the demiurge. I want to talk about this guy, this being that gets a lot of bad PR. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. But what we're going to be talking about today is the real demiurge. Will the real demiurge please stand up? Who is this dude? Now, for the Gnostics, the Middle Platonists, kind of began, this whole Gnostic thing, before it kind of morphed into the Christian Gnostics, and now beyond into what we have today is more modern Gnosticism, see this creator being as a flawed individual, creating a flawed and terrible world, one which we must escape from. Now, I'm, of course, being a little hyperbolic there, but that's the general idea. World bad, creator mistaken, we've got some major issues, right? Well, there's other ways to look at this. On the other end of the spectrum, for somebody like Plato, who educated the Middle Platonists, who they're all drawing from, sees this demiurge as a good thing, the creation of the world as a good thing. And right in the middle of them is this Orphic view, which we're going to tackle today. Now, the Orphics see this as somewhat different. This is a sense of creator who is redeeming, in some ways, the failed creation that happened before. So we have a little bit of mix. You know, we've talked about Oranos, we've talked about Kronos, their mistakes, their miscues in the universe before Zeus. Well, the Orphics think that there is a redemptive quality to this demiurge. So the demiurge is creating from a sense of cosmic beauty, of trying to create with beauty, and we're going to see that as the children come out. What are the first things that Zeus recreates? What's the difference between these different views, and what can we learn from this clash of perspectives? The other thing we're going to tackle in going through all of these children of Zeus is, of course, Zeus, the lover boy, the playboy, the guy who's so overwhelmed with desire all the time that he gets himself into a lot of trouble with old ball and chain Hera, right? This idea of this scorned marriage goddess, and how we tend to look at it from a modern perspective. We see a lot of people saying Zeus, he's a playboy. But from a metaphysical or a cosmological standpoint, the way that the Orphics were looking at this is quite different. This spreading out of himself across all of these different love affairs starts to look like strategy, starts to look like what has to be created through different forms. And thus he needs all these different lovers in order to create the cosmos, to recreate the cosmos. And we're going to see with each of these unions what comes of them. The fruits of these unions are very specific cosmic principles that allow for the recreation and redemption of the cosmos. Now, what we've been talking about on the channel here with the live streams, with the Orphic content in general, is an Orphic cosmology. That's what we've been building towards, and we're getting to some of the really juicy parts. We've been looking at Orphic fragments, we're looking through the theogonies, the cosmology, and now we're going to get into some of the soteriological elements. What are the things that have to be done to redeem the human soul or the cosmos itself as higher and lower orders? We've talked about the 6 reigns of the Orphic cosmos, from Phanes to Nyx to Oranos to Kronos, and we're building on that. In the last one, we talked about Zeus's transformative act of swallowing Phanes, and how he brought all of the cosmos into his being, and for a moment, before he started recreating, was all that there was. And his body then becomes the cosmic architecture, if you will. Well, next, Zeus gets to work. Now, here's the picture from last time. I wanted to bring it up again because it shows what the cosmos looked like before Zeus takes over as the 5th ruler. Like I said, we've worked through a lot of this through many of the videos I've put out from Kronos and Ananke down, but I wanted to bring this up again because it's going to rear its head once more. When we start to look at how Zeus recreates the cosmos, it's going to look very similar to what we see here in these 6 rules. In fact, what Zeus does is produce 6 orders of children, or 6 orders of beings that will basically produce the second cosmos, as it were. So let's get right into the text with the Orphic Rhapsodies. And again, as always, feel free to reach out in the chat and ask me questions as I go along. I want you guys to engage and share your perspectives as we go along. If there's something that comes up for you that you really want to chomp on, let me know. So the Rhapsody say, and now Zeus produced many children. He mingled with necessity. Now we're going to go back. Mingled with necessity. What did they do at the beginning of the cosmos? Chronos, time, the first kind of father figure, mingles with Ananke, necessity. So he's already replicating the 6 orders of being that came before him, or the 4 that came before him, sorry. So Zeus mingles with necessity, Ananke, and generated fate. Okay, now this is a different form of fate. This isn't the Morai. This is not the 3 fates. This is more of like a disembodied principle of fate, and we're going to talk about that a little more in the future in these slides here. So he generates with fate. Well, what does he generate? We'll get there. As Nyx had foretold in an oracle, law-giving Themis was barren until the birth of Zeus, but then she bore him glorious children, for she is the mother of the seasons, of justice, Dike, of good order, of peace, those ministers of Zeus who by their dancing make manifest the progression of nature. And by her daughter Eunomia, good order, he fathered the charities, the graces. Splendor, the shining one, merriment, the well-meaning one, and abundance, she who flourishes. Now, all of these generations are very, very specific, and they basically create the foundation for how things come into being. What I find interesting is Zeus doesn't get to work right away and start producing a son. He just doesn't. He starts by creating the feminine principle over and over and over again. The feminine principle comes up. Now, what we're looking at with the progeny of Zeus is a hierarchical structure. He's building it very specifically with very specific needs that have to happen first before you can have anything else. And at first, when we read it through, we're like, okay, so he produces a bunch of children, but he's laying cosmic principles down so that there is order, that there is a cosmic understanding of how this thing is supposed to go, and then will eventually lead to what he knows has to happen, which is the eventual rule of his son, Dionysus, who is the Redeemer. So through his son, as we talked about in our last live stream, there will be a redemption of the cosmic kerfuffle that happened from Uranus and Kronos. So Zeus and Ananke, the generation of fate. So he mingles with Ananke to generate fate. So the first thing that he does is to generate the web of fate. This relationship between him and Ananke is the fundamental architecture of reality. Fate is first. As fragment 162 of the Orphic fragments states, the demiurgus, Zeus, has intercourse with necessity and thereby generates destiny. This primordial partnership represents more than mythological storytelling. It's a metaphysical principle that limitation is required for manifestation. He has to create the container where everything can be generated. So while Zeus is embodying the creative potential and sovereignty, necessity provides the boundaries within which creation must operate. It's the vessel. So he is within himself everything before this point. So now he has to create the container within which the rest of the cosmos will then be created and self-generate. And in order for him, essentially, to become material, to come into being as Dionysus, that container has to be done first. So at the outside of everything is fate, destiny. Those things cannot be broken. Those sorts of things are tantamount. They are above everything else in this cosmic order. It is the regulatory framework that governs the cosmic process. This isn't like determinism necessarily, but it is specifically meant to be natural law. It is the patterns and principles by which the universe coherently functions. Without it, we lose everything. So this triad between Ananke, necessity, and Zeus as the generative principle, and then destiny, is a recognition of cosmic necessity, that there is a liberation or a redemption that needs to occur. So already we can see that some of the Orphic soteriological, their doctrine of being saved or needing redemption, is coming through in the text here. By understanding these along the way, we're going to see how the Orphics, as the people not only writing this, but also living this lifestyle, these kind of proto-monotheistic types, would have lived in their day. And also, potentially, if you're interested in this stuff, how you can institute this. One of the things I like to talk about on the channel is how to practice this. To begin the channel, I started with a lot of theory, and I'm hoping in the future we're going to talk a lot more about practice. And so we're kind of laying the groundwork for that today. So after Fate, Zeus goes and he copulates with Themis. Now, Themis is cosmic divine order, and she and him and their children form what's called a regulatory triad. Now, these are terms that I'm kind of glossing over here, using kind of a Neoplatonic framework to unpack what the Rhapsodies are talking about. But it said, Themis bore him glorious children, for she is the mother of the seasons, and justice, Dike, good order, and peace. Now, what I find funny is one of the things I really wanted to talk about while we are talking about Zeus, and I brought it up at the beginning, is this idea of a conqueror. We kind of tackled that in the last one, but also this idea of a playboy who's just out there screwing around. What the Orphics are telling you versus what you see potentially in Hesiod, in his Theogonies, they're showing a very different picture of how they view this transcendent Zeus. If the first thing that he creates is destiny, and the second thing he creates is justice in the cosmic sense, this equilibrating principle of balance and proper proportion, to me that doesn't scream the behavior of some libidinous, out of his mind kind of character. That's just not what it is. This is the foundation of ethics. This is the foundation of how to act morally within society. And at the outset of his creation, this is what he's setting in motion. To me, that shows not only cunning, but strategy, but also compassion for what the cosmos is supposed to be. So we're already challenging this idea of an overbearing conqueror, of a bad god, of a mistaken god, and I think that's where a lot of the demiurge, demiurge of the Gnostics comes from, is this jealous god who needs all the worship. And I feel like, oh, you hearing some funny sound? You know what? What I will do is I will mute this. There we go. Hopefully you don't hear it anymore. What we're seeing is a God that cares, is a creator that cares. So justice is the equilibrating principle. It maintains the fundamental harmony of existence. Then he goes in and he has good order. This is the hierarchy of the structure of reality, establishing appropriate relationships between beings and phenomenon. Good order is an element that helps you find your proper place within things. So justice, order, and then peace is the third child. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure what you're hearing. I haven't really changed anything as far as sound. No stone unturned, or no turn on stone. Thank you for letting me know. I'll have to look into it. Justice, good order, and peace. These ministers of Zeus are basically a regulatory framework that are binding the universe together. Before anything else can occur, you have to have these specific things. Now, Thomas Taylor has a really interesting snippet within the Orphic fragments. Themis is very properly assumed in the beginning of the fabrication of the universe She is the cause of the demiurgic sacred laws, and from her, the order of the universe is indissoluble. Hence, also she remains a virgin prior to the progression of the demiurge, according to the oracles of night of Nyx. Yeah, so she is barren until he is born. And it is essentially foretelling that there is a lawgiver, there is a demiurge or a creator that is going to come and is going to essentially redeem what has happened before. That's what we're kind of talking about here with Thomas Taylor. And so let's just keep moving. What we're kind of building towards is an understanding of why these beings are the first. We got a nice picture of Themis. Let's see what some of the other authors. We're going to go back to some of the source texts and see what Themis is about. So Hesiod says, after Metis, and this is really important. After Metis, Zeus led away married bright Themis, divine law, who bare the Ori, the seasons, and Eunomia, Dike, and blooming Irene, who mind the works of mortal men, and the Mori, the fates, to whom wise Zeus gave the greatest honor, Clotho, Lachesis, Atropo, and give mortal men evil and good to have. Now, he takes a little bit of a different turn. Now, the Orphics don't mention Metis as a wife in the Orphic Rhapsodies. Now, what comes down to us from the Rhapsodies is fragmented, so it is possible that it's just missing. But I do think with what we have, it's interesting. There's a different take by Hesiod, potentially for a reason. I think there is a reason that it's missing. If we look at the idea of Metis as the cunning counselor, she was his counselor during the Titanomachy. She taught him everything that he needed to know to defeat the Titans, and so in doing so, she became his first wife. What happens is he sees this as a threat to his rule in the classic theogony take. And so what he does was he eats his wife. He eats Metis because he fears that she has outwitted him. She's more cunning, and he eats her. And what happens is she's pregnant already. She ends up in his skull, hammering away. And what happens from that hammering is he gets a splitting headache. He goes to Hephaestus. He says, split my skull open and let this damn headache out. And boom, out bursts Athena as Hephaestus hits him with an axe, right? So there's many different versions of this, but it's curiously missing from the Orphic. It's very curiously missing from the Orphic. I'm just going to check sound real quick because you said you're still getting as happy. Perfectly honest, I don't know. But Metis is missing in the Orphic. It is laying the groundwork for Athena to come about later, so I think that there's something to kind of put a pin in there. He also mentions that Themis is married, which is really interesting. So this breaks a lot of what people might think as moral law. The Greeks certainly would have thought so. They were very particular about how you're supposed to handle that, handle a marriage. But Themis was previously engaged with another Titan, and thus was not, essentially available. The Orphics, they kind of gloss over that, which I think is interesting. He also mentions fate differently. Now, the Orphic fragments point to a different personification of fate, more of a destiny, and not the weavers of fate that we see traditionally associated with Greek mythology, Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropo, who are basically the weavers of mortal fate. There's like a grander fate that he breeds with necessity. Now, from Pindar, we get some more context. Aegina, land of long-oared galleons, where Themis Soteria, or Sotera, the savior, throned beside great Zeus Xenios, god of the host and guest, is given abundant worship. For in matters of many purport, veering on every wind that flows, fitly to make due disposition with an upright mind is hard. Yet have the immortals ruled this sea-girt land, shall be for strangers of all race a God-sent pillar of true justice, and may the rolling years uphold them in this task. Pindar, talking to us from the 5th century BC, is relaying what Themis really means. That this divine cosmic order, this divine law, is the pillar of the Greek polis. It's the pillar of Greek society. It's the pillar of a good society. And he's describing what a good society is like. Shall be for strangers of all race, a God-sent pillar of true justice. That doesn't sound to me like a demiurge that doesn't care, that traps mortal bodies in frames that they need to escape from. It sounds like if this is the first order of business, what I have to do is to make sure that order is part of the whole cosmic structure. Sounds like somebody who really does have some compassion and some care in their mind, at least in their heart. So what does it look like with these things? So the first child that he has with Themis is Justice, Dike. And we have a little fragment here for he is the source of all things. That just kind of shows that this is the emanation of Zeus in very many different forms. Dike, she transcends mere human morality, and it's more of a fundamental principle. It's not justice as we deem so through our laws. This is the cosmic theological justice. And as the daughter of Zeus and Themis, she embodies that universal law. So she is like a condensed version of what Themis is. All of her daughters are, all of the charities here. Justice manifests simultaneously across multiple dimensions. In the natural world, she ensures the balanced cycles of seasons and measured movements of celestial bodies. So there is a cosmic order happening. And she manifests as ethical action aligned with cosmic law. That points to what the Orphics are thinking soteriologically in their ethics. What our goal is to align our actions and behaviors with cosmic law. It's not like arbitrary moral rules. This is something that they're looking to nature and saying that's how the cosmos works, so that's how I should be functioning. That's important. She's a necessary counterpoint to forces that prevent a single principle from dominating. So this is a direct counterforce to something like a Yaldabaoth in the Gnostic theology, dominating God. This is essentially almost like checks and balances even for Zeus himself, or at least it feels like that. So it's not like our modern conception of justice. It's that's more like social or legal. This is justice of an ontological level, of an ontological necessity. And without that balancing function, the cosmos would collapse into chaos and stagnation. That's how important Dike justice is, not only for the Greeks, but for the cosmos. So we have a nice image here of justice in her guise. But what does Hesiod have to say? As with all these things Orphic, we need to tackle what Hesiod's after. And he says, listen to right, and do not foster violence, for violence is bad for a poor man. Even the prosperous cannot easily bear its burden, but is weighed down under it when he has fallen into delusion. The better path is to go by on the other side towards justice, for Dike beats hubris when she comes at length to the end of the race, but only when he has suffered does the fool learn this. For Orcus or Oath keeps pace with wrong judgments. There is a noise when Dike is being dragged in the way, where those who devour bribes and give sentence with crooked judgments take her. And she, wrapped in mists, follows to the city and haunts of the people, weeping and bringing mischief to men, even to such as have driven her forth in and that they did not deal straightly with her. But they who give straight judgments to strangers, to men of the land, and go not aside from what is just, their city flourishes, and the people prosper in it. Irene, peace, the nurse of children, is abroad in their land, and all-seeing Zeus never decrees cruel war against them. Neither famine nor disaster ever haunt men who do true justice, but light-heartedly they tend the fields which are all their care. The earth bears them victual in plenty, and on the mountains the oak bears acorns upon the top, and bees in the mists. Their woolly sheep are laden with fleeces, their women bear children like their parents. They flourish continually with good things, and do not travel on ships, for the grain-giving earth bears them fruit. Now, yeah, so this is so pivotal to Greek psyche, to Greek thought, that justice has to be at the heart of everything. And Zeus sets forth in the Orphic view to make sure that this is first. Divine order, destiny, and justice comes first. Now, the next of these daughters that happen with him and Themis is good order, Eunomia. She's the second daughter of this little triad that they create, and she embodies the principle of cosmic organization. This is a taxonomic arrangement that gives each element its proper place within the whole, while justice balances, good order structures things. So she establishes the hierarchical relationships between beings, cosmic forces, and ensures that the cosmic elements exist in appropriate relationships. See, we're still within the wheelhouse of cosmic law. And in this Orphic view, it's not about superiority, but coherence in function. How do they function? And if these things get out of order, then we have problems. We have a breach in the cosmic order, a breach in law. So there are nested levels of reality, and I think this is a kind of a Neoplatonic thing that sneaks in here. But I think it's also pretty evident in what Plato's talking about, that there are levels to the cosmos, and this order governs this and that, and so on. It's a very common antique view of the cosmos. There is a differentiation of functions within these cosmic systems, and Eunomia, she orders that. She puts it into order, and then also maintains the boundaries between the ontological domains, so the different orders that we will see depicted here soon. But this complexity that must occur needs structure, and so Zeus, with all the foresight of having Metis in his skull and in his being, because that's the thing, we saw with his swallowing of Phanes, he gains all the power of the cosmos. Well, if he does the swallowing thing again, and this is in the Orphic Tradition and the Birth of the Gods by Duane Meisner, it's an Oxford Press book, really good. This weird idea of swallowing somehow gives Zeus the power of what he swallows. So not only does he swallow Phanes, he goes, that was a really good idea. I'll just swallow Metis too, and then I'll be the most cunning and the wisest that there is. I'll absorb the power, and then what happens is it kind of backfires on him, and Athena comes out of his skull. So one of his first children that potentially was supposed to rule in his stead and take over for him comes out Athena to kind of check his tendencies that he has from his fathers to stray from the cosmic order. But he keeps on trucking, right? This is part and parcel of what we're doing. And here we have a nice image of Eunomia. Now, Pindar says, here in this city dwells Eunomia, good order, that unsullied fountain, the Dike, her sister, sure support of cities, and Irene, peace of the same kin, who are the stewards of wealth for mankind, three glorious daughters of wise counsel Themis. Far from their path they hold proud hubris, insolence, fierce-hearted mother of full-fed Horos, disdain, but to you sons of Aeles, how often the Horai, Dike, Irene, Eunomia, decked with their wreaths, have given the glory of the victor's triumph for supreme valor in the sacred games. Pindar talking about Olympian, about the Olympic Games here. Now, Solon is one of the pre-Socratic sages. And in this fragment, he talks a little bit about how he saw eunomia. This is what my heart bids me teach the Athenians, that dysnomia, lawlessness, brings the city countless ills, but eunomia, lawfulness, reveals all that is orderly and fitting, even places fetters round the unjust. She makes the rough smooth, puts a stop to excess, weakens insolence, and dries up the blooming of ruin, straightens out crooked judgments, tames deeds of pride, and puts an end to acts of sedition and to the anger of grievous strife. Under her all things among men are fitting and rational. Again, what the Greeks are talking about here doesn't seem to be a god that is trying to restrict us, a God that has put us into bodies that are fallible, or a fallible creator of the universe. It seems like he's really trying. So Zeus and the Graces. Through eunomia, he has even more children. Now, this is the next step of what he does. By her daughter Eunomia, good order, Zeus fathers the Graces. So he moves on from that for a second, and he fathers more daughters. Splendor, the shining one; merriment, the well-meaning one; and abundance, she who flourishes. So the very things that we need to flourish are being born. All of these things are setting up for Olympians, not for a cosmic order of gods that lord themselves over mortals. All of this is being set up so that mortals have the best chance to redeem themselves in their own lives and live by these cosmic principles. So, splendor is the illuminative principle that reveals inherent beauty within well-ordered things, and she's the intrinsic harmony of cosmic structures that become visible and appreciable. Now, merriment is the vivifying principle. We're going to see some more of this vivific principle coming up here with Aphrodite. He animates structured reality with joy and vitality. Merriment brings dynamic movement to what might be static order from eunomia, which is not really like eunomia is that rigid principle. Well, those rigid principles we see in these Orphic pairings needs something that kind of gives it movement, gives it flow. And so we will see that as well with Hephaestus and Aphrodite. Now, abundance, flourishing, is the generative principle that ensures that proper order produces continuous renewal and proliferation. Abundance represents the natural overflow of well-structured systems. For the Orphic initiate, though, recognizing these qualities in the natural world reveals the benevolent potential within cosmic law. By aligning with the charities, one moves beyond mere acceptance of structure toward celebration. This is not just like, okay, here's how the world is. These are things to be happy about. These are things to be excited about. These are things to really be joyful about being embodied. And so, for Zeus, this is very important. I wonder if that'll fix sound. All right, how do I sound now? Anybody give me is there still a buzzy sound? I'm gonna give myself a water break here. And here we have a nice picture of the charities, the Graces. But let's go and see what Pindar has to say. Whose haunts are by Cephisus river, you queens beloved of poet's song, ruling Orchomenos, that sunlit city and land of lovely steeds, watch and ward of the ancient Minian race, the Minoan race. Hear now my prayer, you Graces three, for in your gift are all our mortal joys and every sweet thing, be it wisdom, beauty, or glory, that makes rich the soul of man. Nor even can the immortal gods order at their behest the dance and festals, lacking the charities' aid, who are the stewards of all rights of heaven, whose thrones are set at Pytho beside Apollon, of the golden bow, and who with everlasting honor worship the Father, Lord of great Olympos. These things are meant to bring joy and happiness to humans, to the mortal world. What we're seeing is a God, again, that cares. Orphic hymn 60, To the Graces, reads, Hear me, illustrious graces, mighty named from Zeus, descended from Eunomia famed, Thalia, Aglaia, fair and bright, and blessed Eusaphrine, whom joys delight, mothers of mirth, all lovely to the view, pleasure abundant, pure, belongs to you, various, for ever flourishing and fair, desired by mortals, much invoked in prayer, circling dark-eyed, delightful to mankind, come and you mystics bless with bounteous mind. So Zeus, in recreating the cosmos, doesn't start with Hephaestus crashing into creative mode in the forge. He doesn't create war first. He doesn't create the sun first. He doesn't create fertility and Demeter and all those things first. No, he works on the things that are worth living for, the things that are worth being alive for. That is good. That is like the epitome of ethical and good. All the great things. So far we haven't seen any suffering enter into the picture yet. Seems like the aim is to potentially get rid of that, especially when we think about it from the soteriological perspective that the Orphics are after. And so after the children with Eunomia, we go to Peace. Peace is the third daughter from Themis, and so we have peace, good order, and justice as the primary triad, the first order of being that Zeus creates. She represents the absence of conflict. It's more than that, sorry. More than the absence of conflict. She is the active principle of harmonious integration within cosmic diversity. So while justice balances opposing forces and good order establishes the hierarchy, peace creates that dynamic movement between them, kind of like the younger daughter of Eunomia. And so there's a cosmic principle, there is a natural and a psychological element here, and we'll go through them. She ensures that the myriad forces of the universe, though distinct from each other, will be sometimes opposing, and they will function together as an integrated synthesis, not in direct conflict all the time. That's important. That's important because a lot of the Orphic material comes from a Pythagorean lens. It comes from Pythagorean thinking, and they are kind of anti-polar. There are poles, but they're always looking for a synthesis. And so I think that's important to point out here. Even properly balanced and ordered, these forces might remain fragmented. So you need this synthesis to happen for it to work, for the cosmos to function. And so peace manifests as the seamless cycling of seasons, the harmonious interaction of elements, and the symphonic integration of ecological systems. From a psychological perspective within our own experience, though, peace represents the state where diverse aspects of consciousness function in coherent relationship rather than internal conflict. And so for the Orphics, these cosmic principles are moving beyond accepting necessity, so to speak, but recognizing justice, finding one's place within good order, and then participating in it from the level of peace, harmonizing with the order of the cosmos. And here we have, it's a beautiful image, but it's so funny, the artists from the times that we have so much of the Greek art. They always do. It's not the most flattering face that they gave her here, but I still think it's a beautiful image. So, what do I have here? Some pieces on Dike, on peace, from some Greek lyrics and from Diodorus Siculus. Now, the first piece here is a kind of like a prayer. It seems like there's a lot of lacunae and there's a lot of pieces missing. But it's a prayer asking for eunomia, for good order and justice and peace, to bless the city, to forget the heavy-hearted misfortunes. And I think that it's calling to the idea of life is difficult, life is hard, and so for the Greeks, they understood that life is difficult. I'm sure their life was very difficult during antiquity at times, and so the toil of life in general was very difficult. And these things were signs that not only they were living in order with the cosmos and being blessed by the cosmos, but it also points to a desire to be redeemed and to not live under the yoke of such things. But Siculus has a different piece here that we want to examine. He says, the Ori, as they are called, each of them, according as her name indicates, was given and assigned by Zeus and Hera, the ordering and adornment of life, so as to serve to the greatest advantage of mankind. For there is nothing which is better to build a life of felicity than obedience to law, eunomia, and justice, Dike, and peace, Irene. This was very big for them. So that sets up what I like to call the first order of the cosmos. And I have a little map that I'll show you here towards the end. But, it's from good order, then he generates again. So, what do they say in the Orphic Rhapsodies? Well, Zeus pursued Dione. Now, Dione is, in many cases, kind of an idea of the female version of Zeus. But she escaped his caresses, and his divine semen then falls into the sea. And in spring, the season of new flowers, which is kind of funny, considering the day, Bielchina, we've got this going on, the seed spawned a wondrous foam from which the popular Aphrodite came forth, she who awakens laughter, and who blesses the physical union of mortals. By many named Hera, he fathered Hephaestus, the coppersmith, who is called the lame god, and the untiring fire. Hephaestus became the greatest of craftsmen, for as he had an inclination to make things like the Cyclopes, those three divine craftsmen who fashioned the thunderbolts of Zeus, taught him the art of creating beautiful, brazen objects. Hephaestus mingled with Aphrodite and thereby created the form of the universe. And then he united with Aglaea and produced good glory, abundance, and good omen, and friendliness, by which his works are made beautiful. So again, before we even get to the divider of Ares, of war, and some of the more common elements of the Olympians, Zeus is back to developing a second order of the cosmos, and that is the form, the shape of Aphrodite, the shapeliness of this daughter, the generative, vivific power of Aphrodite, and then the crafting god of Hephaestus is born. So again, first a female born, and then finally the first male of his lineage is born in the Orphic tales. And it is funny. It's like there's this trying to produce an heir that will be his son, but Hephaestus was never going to be that because he comes out lame. Why that occurs for them, and why the Orphics, why the Orphics choose that is strange to me, because it's not necessarily how it always comes out in Hesiod or other myths. But they are married, and so if Aphrodite came before Hephaestus, their union was incredibly important also in Hesiod, but their union in the Orphic shows more of a cosmological necessity, that along with the artificing of the cosmos, the creation of it, like the forging of it that Hephaestus will do, Aphrodite is that vivifying principle, the aliveness within it. And so we move along. Aphrodite, material emergence. It's very important. Zeus pursues Dione, and she escapes him. This idea of the semen falling out into the sea is also a callback we see to Ouranos, the falling of his generative power into the sea foam. And so we see Aphrodite, the second born in very much the same fashion. Now, this event is really important because it generates a secondary aspect of Aphrodite. Not Aphrodite Orania, but Aphrodite Pandemos, the popular Aphrodite, the one that most people know about. Now, I wrote a piece on Aphrodite on Substack today. Please go check that out if you want to know more about Aphrodite and her many aspects. But this, unlike her celestial counterpart, born from Ouranos, is the popular Pandemos. And she is the principle of material manifestation, of the emergent. Oh my God. She is the divine potential taking tangible form in the physical realm. This generative foam that arises from this divine essence meets elemental waters. So water, we have a callback there, I think, to the beginning of the Rhapsodies, where everything begins in earth and water or mud. But symbolizes the emergent properties and new qualities that will arise out of these simpler components. These are the things that Hephaestus will use to produce, essentially. She is the matter, the material that Hephaestus works on, that the craftsman crafts with, the hylic matter. This process mirrors how complexity emerges through cosmic manifestation. Now, their union is a cosmic principle too. She awakens laughter and blesses the physical union of mortals, and he, on the other side of things, shows the toil that's necessary for these things to have real beauty, to have real effectual beauty in the world. And so there's different sides of this coin, and we'll get into it, but this is what he decides to generate after lawfulness, after good order, after peace and happiness and abundance and all these things, is love and beauty. Those are the most important things within the cosmos to Zeus as he recreates it. Now, for the Orphic initiate, recognizing Aphrodite's essence means that perceiving the sacred within the material is part of their doctrine. Now, a lot of the Orphic material seems to be stilted towards matter is not good. We need to live these kind of ascetic lives. I think that's not fully accurate. I don't really get that from the material. There is a sense of needing to operate within a cosmic order, within the orders of justice, and to not live to excess, but it isn't a denial of matter. It is more of a living within a balanced, let's say a balanced structure of behavior, a moral structure, an ethical structure of behavior, but it isn't a denial of those physical aspects. If it was, then Aphrodite would not have been so important in this hierarchical structure, because what we look at is this hierarchical order that they are all descended in, both in the original cosmos with Phanes, Nyx, Ouranos, Kronos, and this new order that Zeus is building here. These orders are in the places that they're in for a reason, which means that there is a divine perspective of matter. Too long of a long-winded explanation, but it is matter that matters to them. It does matter. And then a nice picture of Aphrodite. Well, this second birth of Aphrodite, what else do we have on it? Well, some of the deeper fragments in the Orphic corpus tell us a little bit more. But indeed, Zeus brings forth the second Aphrodite from his own abilities of generation, and Dione herself also provides influence. The goddess Aphrodite advances from the foam, following in the same manner as her forebear Orania. The same theologian Orpheus also speaks about her thus. And in this other piece of the fragment from translated by Lobeck, it says, "Then love seized him, Zeus, greatly, while from the mighty father leapt forth from his genitals the foamy seed. Then the sea received the seed of great Zeus, and having gone round a year, in the season of beautiful begetting, he bore laughter-rousing Aphrodite, the foam-born. Laughter very important to living a good life. It's the great medicine, they say, you know. So again, we have the laughter-loving Aphrodite. So the first order of these things is cosmic order. The second order is generation. What we're seeing here is he is building a very complex cosmos, and we're going to look at a map of it here. But I wanted to take a kind of a brief stop here. We're not going to be able to cover the mediational dyad from Leto, Artemis, and Apollo. That'll be next week. And also Hermes and Athena. Those are all coming next week. But this creative tetrad of Zeus and Hera and what they create along with Aphrodite is extremely important as we get towards this second order. So we've covered the first order, which is all based on cosmic law and how justice and peace and all that's supposed to function. Well, now he gets to work in creating the cosmos proper, creating it in and of itself. So with Hera, he has 4 children. Now, on the outside, of course, we still have Aphrodite lingering. He creates Aphrodite with himself, essentially, his female version of himself. And in this, he creates 4 very specific children, and they're incredibly important. So we get Hephaestus, who is the principle of skillful manifestation. He is the untiring fire. Ares is the vitalizing principle of differentiation. He is described as invulnerable, and he represents necessary tension or division even that drives the cosmic evolution and prevents stagnation. So there has to be some sort of division. Hebe, very little known, very little spoken about, is the principle of regeneration. And she embodies youth and renewal that ensures this cosmic continuity through these cycles of becoming. Whereas Eletheia, I butcher that one, I'm sorry. The principle of emergent manifestation. She is the protector of birth, the one who brings the birth pains. And there's some really interesting passages around her. And she also relates to Artemis, which is going to be at the next order. So you can see some crossover here. She governs the threshold between potential and actuality. Hey, Sky, Sage, Hermaphroditus, Hermes and Aphrodite. We will cover that eventually. That is one of the sons of Aphrodite, who is both male and female, and is said to be one of the most beautiful of her sons as well. We will get to that eventually. I know I definitely want to do that, and I am writing a lot about the Erotes and her sons. So if you want to check that out, that stuff is going to be over on Substack. So these 4 start the generative process within the container kind of Aphrodite. Why do I have 2 of these slides? Hephaestus, the untiring fire. He is this perpetual transformative energy that shapes the raw material of Aphrodite into meaningful structures. It's not a destructive fire. It is a controlled flame, a purposeful creation like a craftsman. It is a cosmological force that articulates potential into actuality. Aphrodite operates kind of like an infinite potential, an infinite web of potential beauty. But it has to be shaped by a cosmic hand. And so that's what Hephaestus functions as. And the union with him and Aphrodite produces all of these beautiful forms. His technical skill with her generative beauty produces the cosmic order on this secondary level. And their offspring, these offspring that he has later with Aglaia, which is one of the graces, also connected to Aphrodite in many ways, produce good glory, abundance, good omen, and friendliness. Now, as the divine craftsman, this is really interesting because we think of the demiurge as the craftsman, right? Zeus is birthing all of these things with his unions with the females, the women of the Titanesses, but he's not actually the craftsman. His hands aren't on creation. Hephaestus is the one doing that. So one of the things I think is interesting, we have this like idea of one demiurge, whereas in the Orphic, it really kind of seems like there's 2. There's Zeus who's planning it, and there's Hephaestus who's building everything out. So it's kind of like a father-son situation. Zeus directs what's supposed to be done, and then Hephaestus carries it out. He is like, it's almost like wearing a puppet. Zeus has got Hephaestus, and he's like, this is what we're going to create now. But he is also the one who fashions the thunderbolts, because he learns that from the Cyclopes. But his primordial role is to forge the universe, and to forge it not just because it has to be beautiful, hence his union with Aphrodite. Everything that is forged has a specific beauty that has to come about. For the Orphics, for the initiate, this gives us a principle of intentional creation, the capacity to transform our vision into reality through skilled action. So skilled action is something that's very important to them. And recognizing this aspect is a cosmic intelligence. So that's very important as well. The idea of creating in cosmic alignment with those orders is tantamount. Hence we see in the art as well, there's a need for excellence, or arete in the Greeks. And so here we go. Here's Hephaestus. He's crafting a beautiful helmet for Ares here, probably. Here, dude. Here, bro. I'm going to have to move a little quicker because I'm almost out of time here. I've got in about 20, 30 minutes. So in the Homeric hymn to Hephaestus, we hear, "Sing, clear-voiced muse of Hephaestus, famed for inventions. With bright-eyed Athena he taught men glorious crafts throughout the world. Men who before used to dwell in caves in the mountains like wild beasts. Now they have learned crafts through Hephaestus, the famed worker. Easily they live in peaceful lives in their own houses the whole year round. Be gracious, Hephaestus, and grant me success and prosperity." The Orphic hymn, very similar. Hephaestus, bearing splendid light, unwearied fire with flaming torrents bright, strong-handed, deathless, and art divine. Pure element, a portion of the world is thine. All taming artist, all diffusive power. 'Tis thine supreme, all substance to devour. Aether, sun, moon, and stars. Light pure and clear, for these thy lucid parts of fire to men appear. We're seeing the imprints right there of Hephaestus as the creator god of these elements. So the creator of the sun, the moon, the stars. In this instance, as Zeus recreates, he's recreating through Hephaestus. Here, blessed power, to the holy rites inclined, and propitious on the incense shine. Suppress the rage of fire's unwearied flame, and still persevere our nature's vital flame. So he also acts as a counterbalance to Ares, and Ares' natural tendency to be a vital flame that's completely out of control. As we move through this, there's more stuff from Proclus and from Syrianus on this. He says, "Therefore, theologians yoke Hephaestus with Aphrodite and have proclaimed that he, in his ways, forges everything." And again, from Hephaestus and Aglaia, produces the three children. Oh my God, I can't even read those right now. I'm so out of it. To adorn the material world with beauty. I'm not going to read them because I'm not going to do them justice. We've talked about them before. Syrianus says that to consider, however, an analogy of the causes of all the arts, also in the gods and the theologians, do not hesitate to show the Cyclopes and Hephaestus as coppersmiths and architects, nor to allot weaving to Athena and Cora. On this account, though, Hephaestus is said by theologians to fashion things from brass, as being the artificer of resisting solids, and because the heavens are said to be brazen, or made of brass, as being an imitation of the intelligible, the maker of the heavens is likewise fabled to be Brasier, or Hephaestus. So what we're learning here is that Hephaestus is, in a certain way, the new demiurge, the new creator of things. He is the fashioner that takes the orders from demiurge proper, which is Zeus. So he's very important, and I think he gets a back seat all too often in the whole mythic tale. Thomas Taylor says that we shall therefore introduce to our discussion from the theologians credibility concerning this divinity, that Vulcan then is of the demiurgic, but not the vivific or the connective, or any other series, and is manifested by theologians when they represent him as fashioning things from brass, employing the bellows, and in short, they call him the artificer. So he represents the demiurgic power in constructing and restricting things, in creating them into differentiated pieces, and a lot of the other previous orders are going to govern the relationship between the things that he creates. So using his skill and fire, he gives structure and form to the world, where in contrast, Aphrodite embodies the thing that makes them alive. So he's building matter into form. She enlivens it. And their mythological union creates the form of the universe. This is the second order of that cosmos. Now his daughters, Euclea, Euthenia, Eupheme, and Philophrosine, are the different ways in which beauty comes about. These are what I'm calling the daughters of the demiurge. So after his union with Aphrodite, he mates with Aglaea, who is one of the three graces. There's many graces. There's not just three. There's like 20. But these goddess, she's the goddess of beauty, splendor, and glory. Again, potentially retinue of Aphrodite. So he mates with a lower form of Aphrodite, and he basically comes out with good repute or glory, the principle of warranted reputation or excellence, and she represents how properly crafted forms generate recognition and honor. This is important soteriologically for the Orphics. She is the inherent glory that emerges from work aligned with the cosmic good, or with the cosmic principles. If you're doing something, if you're producing something, if you're creating something, make damn sure that it is produced within those ethical principles. Euthenia, the prosperity and abundance feature. She is flourishing prosperity, and she represents how skillful creation naturally produces bounty and sufficiency. And she embodies the material abundance that flows from harmonious craftsmanship. Again, harmonious craftsmanship within those divine constructs. Eupheme is the daughter of praise, acclamation, and shouts of triumph, the principle of auspicious speech and favorable reception, and she represents the sacred blessing that accompanies true creation. She embodies proper recognition and celebration of divine craftsmanship. And so what we're looking at here with all of these is these are ways to be in life. And for the Orphics, this cosmology was like an ethical diagram of how to be in life. It wasn't just how the world came into being, but how the world is supposed to be lived in and through. So when we read these things, they are not just tales of something that happened once. It is important for us to sit with these things, meditate with these things, understand what they mean on a human level so that we can put them into action in the world. Blue Owl says, I like how Hephaestus' equivalent in Slavic myths is said to have built the sun and other celestial bodies. Yeah, I think it's pretty well known that the craftsman god is the one who puts the stars in alignment. Now, the principles of how those stars, where they're supposed to go, is already set. The template for that is already set. This is where they're supposed to go. He just gets his hands dirty and does the work. And so from there, he continues, Zeus does. So Hephaestus has children very much like Zeus does. He's copying Zeus. Zeus has daughters that are part of the graces, the charities, and so does Hephaestus. But then he goes back to mating with Hera, and he fathers the invulnerable Ares, the mighty god of life and struggle, youthful Hebe, and Iliathea, who protects the birth of our progeny. So Zeus and Ares, this is differentiation. It's not the Ares of war. The Orphic Ares seems very much different than what the traditional Greek mythological Ares is. Now, he is untamable. He is invulnerable. And I think that's interesting, this god of life being invulnerable. So while Hephaestus is shaping through craft, Ares provides dynamic energy that prevents cosmic stagnation. He represents the paradoxical principle that strife generates life, that this struggle that we have generates more and more life. So he's tension. He's the opposition that's necessary for growth. He's that uncomfortable feeling when you grow, when things are kind of like, when things are changing, that dynamic energy within us, they challenge the rigidity of Hephaestus, and Ares is that counterpoint to him. So he brings about the distinct forms, the undifferentiated potential. He's an enlivening agent, kind of like Aphrodite, and he establishes boundaries that define individual existence. So one of the things that the Romans had with Mars very different than Ares is portrayed, was agricultural boundaries. Think about fences that keep sheep within their boundaries. He's the agricultural principle, the struggling of plants coming up out of the ground. Ares is this unquenchable, untiring energy that just keeps going and going and going. Kind of like how life is, just keeps going. So he's the creation of that necessary resistance through which strength develops, and the evolution of things. So when something is in a state of tension and struggle, it has to adapt and learn and grow. That is a hugely important principle that sometimes does generate discomfort, but it wouldn't say, I don't think it really necessarily points to suffering. That's something that we will tackle eventually within this whole thing. But for the Orphic initiate, this is acknowledging that challenge and resistance are not obstacles, but opportunities to spiritual development, and it is a necessary driver. And so these tensions within existence between form and chaos, growth and decay, individual and collective, they create a dynamic field through which consciousness can continue to evolve. And that's really the name of the game for the Orphics. There's a nice picture of Ares without his nose. Somebody had some tension there and knocked off his nose. Ares, exceeding in strength, chariot rider, golden-helmed, doughty in heart, shield-bearer, savior of cities, harnessed in bronze, strong of arm, unwearying, mighty with spear, O defender of Olympos, father of warlike Nike, and of ally of Themis, the cosmic order, stern governor of the rebellious, leader of the righteous men, scepter, king of manliness, who whirl your fiery sphere, the star of Mars, among the planets in their sevenfold courses, through the aether, wherein your blazing steeds ever bear you above the third firmament of heaven. Hear me, helper of men, giver of dauntless youth, shed down a kindly ray from above upon my life and strength of war, that I may be able to drive away bitter cowardice from my head, and crush down the deceitful impulses of my soul. Restrain also the keen fury of my heart, which provokes me to tread the ways of blood-curdling strife. Rather, O Blessed One, give me boldness to abide within the harmless laws of peace, avoiding strife and hatred, and the violent fiends of death. That's a very different picture of Ares than what we're used to seeing within Greek mythology. That is calculated. It is firm. It is in control, and it is a defender of cosmic order. And that is the Homeric hymn to Ares. You can look that up as well. Theoi.com is where I get a lot of the sources. So he's the divider, and the Orphic hymn kind of mimics that. But there is some kind of like they kind of have a different viewpoint than Homer on war. Magnanimous, unconquered, and boisterous Ares, in darts rejoicing and in bloody wars fierce and untamed, whose mighty power can make the strongest walls from their foundations shake. Mortal destroying king, defiled with gore, pleased with war's dreadful and tumultuous roar. The human blood and swords, spears delight, and the dire ruin of mad savage fight. Stay furious contests and avenging strife, whose work with woe embitter human life. To lovely Cypris and to Laius Dionysus yield, for arms exchange the labors of the field. Encourage peace to gentle works inclined, and give abundance with benign mind. So the Orphics are kind of calling it out a little bit more. They're saying war is not part of the game. Instead, please, Ares, yield to Cyprus' harmony and beauty, and to the redemption and the redemptiveness of Dionysus, and exchange your arms of war for the labors of the field, and be the agricultural version that we need you to be. Which is a nice way of looking at Ares as different. Ares is often seen as a bad guy, and I think that does us a disservice too to think about it that way. So we move on to Hebe, regeneration. She's the cupbearer of the gods. And youthful Hebe manifests as the paradoxical quality of eternal becoming within stable being. She represents the cosmos' capacity to renew itself continually while maintaining its coherent identity, kind of like a living organism replaces its cells while preserving its form. So temporally, she is the renewal of time, and she ensures freshness within continuity, but also materially, she is the regeneration of physical forms through cycles of dissolution and reformation, and also the cycle of the soul's capacity for perpetual rejuvenation and growth. The Orphics believed in metempsychosis, in reincarnation of a kind, and so Hebe is kind of at the helm of that. She is the cupbearer of immortality. Now, without her influence, the cosmos would calcify into static permanence or dissolve into chaotic impermanence. But obviously it doesn't. It keeps moving. We have no evidence that it's going to stop moving, and no evidence that it ever wasn't moving. It just keeps moving. According to Plato, it's all eternal, and according to the Orphics, it is also eternal and will just keep going, thanks to Hebe. And her function maintains that balance. For the Orphic initiate, though, the recognizing Hebe's principle means embracing perpetual renewal, that there is no end to this thing. It means understanding and accepting that, and understanding that the spiritual development requires constant rebirth within the continuity of consciousness. And there she is. She's about to pour a nice cup of ambrosia or nectar for the gods. Now Nonus says, Hebe, come this way. Take up your pitcher and bring your Trojan cupbearer, who serves with cups the divine company. Let Ganymedes draw honeyed drops from this river and fill all the mixing bowls of Zeus, that nectar of Olympus which they say is the drink of Zeus. And Hesiod says, and mighty Heracles made Hebe the child of great Zeus, and gold-shod Hera his shy wife, in snowy Olympus. Happy he, for he has finished his great works, and lives amongst the dying gods, untroubled and unaging all his days. Now, Heracles is an interesting point here, and marrying the cupbearer of immortality points to this idea that if we live with excellence, if we live with an ethical regard, if we live within the cosmic law, the opportunity to become immortal presents itself. This presents itself with Heracles. It presents itself with a lot of the heroes. It is this goal to strive for within Greek culture, within the Greek psyche, to achieve arete, to achieve excellence, is very important. Now she has a sister as well, one of the four, described as the protectors of births. She is the goddess of birth pains, really, of easy birth or not so easy birth. She is the light bringer at the end of the tunnel of birth. So as we come out of the cosmic womb, as we come out of our own mother's womb, she is the one welcoming us into existence, which is a really beautiful thing. She facilitates the emergence across those scales of reality, so whenever a new part of the cosmos needs to be born, she's involved. Whenever a new person needs to be born, she's involved. She's with the mother, she's with the child. She is the, as the Romans called her, Lucina, the light bringer. She protects the integrity of new forms as they materialize, so she's there to protect it as it comes into being, and she ensures the successful transition from potential to actual, and she governs the critical moments when systems reorganize themselves into higher complexity. We tend to think of things as higher complexity as we go up the chain, but it's really down the chain. The more we condense into matter, the more that principle organizes itself, it's even more complex, right? So think about it like this. Every new thing that gets born, every time we drop into a new order of existence, it's more complex, and she governs that process, that emergence into new form. She is that transformative breakthrough of spiritual birth that happens. And here she is. There's not very many images of the labor goddess, but the Orphics also have another one, Protheria, who is like the second hymn within the corpus that also talks about it. But I'm going to start here with this Homeric hymn, where, because it transitions into what we're going to be talking about next week with Artemis and Apollo. We're not going to get there this week. So Leto was racked 9 days and 9 nights with pangs beyond wont, and there were her with all the chiefest of goddess, Dione, Rhea, Ichnia, Themis, and loud-moaning Amphitrite, and the other deathless goddesses save white-armed Hera, who sat in the halls of cloud-gathering Zeus. Only Eileithyia, goddess of sore travail, had not heard of Leto's troubles, for she sat on top of Olympus beneath golden clouds, by white-armed Hera's contriving, who kept her close through envy, because Leto, with these lovely tresses, was soon to bear a son faultless and strong, being Apollo. Here we see Hera being very jealous of the other sons, because she's already bore her sons with Zeus, and Zeus is going to continue to bear sons, and that threatens the order that I think that she brings to things. We'll get into the whole Hera bit in the next one, because I think it's very interesting and very important. But this passage here from the Homeric hymn is talking about how she essentially goes to Leto to help her with those pains instead of following what her mother wants to do. And it's funny because she does this. She's involved not only with Apollo being born, but with Dionysus being born and with Heracles being born. There is some finagling around with Hera and her daughter on the son of Zeus being born, the potential new ruler of Zeus being born. In the end, the pains of birth seized Leto. She longed for to bring forth, and she has Apollo. So what we've been looking at, I want to kind of point this out as we get close to wrapping up here and get to a Q&A. At the center of all this was fate. And then we kind of see it building in layers, cosmic order, then the principles of generation, and then finally form comes from this tetrad of Hephaestus, Ares, Hebe, and Eileithyia. They all come from Hera, right? And they mix with this Aphrodite principle, which is another of his affairs, kind of with himself. But that is the basis of the first and second orders of this reality. Now we can see here that Zeus is following a very similar structure to what the cosmos was like before, with Phanes and Nyx and Uranus, and there's 6 divine kingships. Well, there are 6 orders that Zeus brings into being. Now, before that, we see up here in this blue circle, post-Phanes. This is all things within Zeus. This is pre-order. Now, the first order is that primordial abstract principles of fate, and Athena also, because we're going to touch on that eventually here. He swallows Metis. He mates with fate. That's the first order. The second order then becomes justice, good order, and peace. This cosmic regulatory system has to come into being. And that includes all of the graces as well. Splendor, merriment, and abundance. All of that with Themis. And then this third order, we're already halfway through the creation and the children of Zeus, is Aphrodite, Hephaestus, Ares, Hebe, and Eileithyia. This third order of material manifestation. So we go from primordial abstract principles, the shape of the universe, through how it is regulated, how it is supposed to function, and how everything has to behave within it. Then he gets down to the dirty work of how we're going to make this thing. It is going to be through generation and beauty and this vitalizing principle that's going to keep on going with Ares. And then it's going to just keep going because of the more immortality of Hebe and the protectiveness as it continues to churn along of Eileithyia. What that leads us to is a lot of ethical and doctrinal soteriological ideas that the Orphics have. So we have talked about it before, this Titanic and Dionysian duality within our being, within our soul. But there's also a path of initiation. And we find these paths of initiation by aligning ourselves with these cosmic principles and going through these rituals that basically a lot of the hymns themselves are the ritual. And I'll talk about that eventually in a future video. But initiation into these mysteries, truly understanding and breaking down these mysteries, is what allows us to remember, to kind of recog and cultivate our cosmic principles within the self. And then we engage in those rituals to attune ourselves to these cosmic principles. And it's through that, through the recognition of fate, through the cultivation of justice, order, peace, that we integrate those principles into active behavioral wisdom that we show. And it's through that that we achieve liberation or redemption and also take part in cosmic participation. And so we have some things to look at here. Only by accepting our bonds can we transcend them, is something that I think the Orphics really would have jived with. Learning that true freedom begins with acceptance of cosmic boundaries, not rebelling against them. We saw what rebelling does in previous videos, where Kronos and Uranus do. It's cosmic upheaval. So we don't want that. What we want to do is accept the way that things are built and do our best to live within those boundaries. And that is the way forward for at least the Orphics. This precept, as above in the heavens, so within the initiate, so within the soul. The soul becomes the microcosmic reflection of the cosmic harmony. And so if we establish an ethical equilibrium of justice, order of our thoughts with eunomia, and cultivate inner peace with Irene, then we're kind of living that pattern. We start to see how these things, as a story, don't make a ton of sense. How do I put that into practice? But if you look at it like this is how they would have lived. The Orphic, and this is a Platonic thing. The body is a tomb, only for the uninitiated. For the initiated, it then becomes a temple. So material existence becomes the vehicle for spiritual expression rather than a prison we have to escape. That's the difference if you have a Gnostic bad creator and a good creator who's created the cosmos in a divine order that is constructive to redemption. So through Ares' spiritual intensity, through the creative fire of Hephaestus, through the perpetual renewal of Hebe, there is a channel for redemption. And so engaging with this reality without being trapped by it mentally is the game. Proper relationship to existence, not the denial of. And so we're here. We've done it. We've gotten through half of it. I wanted to try and do the whole thing, but I started to get into the research of this and looking at the rhapsodies and all the different children that Zeus has, and it just wasn't going to happen within the time frames of our live stream. So if you have any questions on anything that I've covered, or in general just want to chat, I got a few more minutes. Get at me. Thanks for sticking with me. I will look into whatever the buzzing sound was that you were hearing, so I'll let you know if I get that figured out. I don't know what I would have changed that would have created that problem. We didn't have that problem last live stream, so... we do have another live stream tonight, just FYI. I have a guest on tonight, Frater Ruptus from the Hermetic Podcast, and I are going to chop it up tonight. We're going to talk about all kinds of things from Enochian and John D. To his EnochiaCon that is coming up here, and some stuff on Bielchina, on the May Day festival here. So stick around on the channel later tonight, 8 p.m. Mountain. We'll be going live. No, the body as a tomb is a quote from Plato, but I added on that secondary part. That's me adding on to that. Because if you are not living an initiated life, you are essentially, at least to Plato, you're not really living, right? You are essentially walking corpse. And so the spirit is not free in that sense. You are trapped within a body. But if you are living within these principles, living ethically, living within the cosmic framework, that we've presented here, then the body itself becomes a temple. And so going through these initiations, understanding what these principles mean, what the stories mean, gives you the ability to live life and meet life on its terms. Yeah, I thought it was good too. When I started working on it, I was like, body is a tomb. How do we transform that into something that is less misanthropic and less I don't like the material world? Because I think it's a major problem we have in spirituality these days. Not only in spirituality, the occult, the esoteric, there's an escapism that people are really, really fixated on, and it's unhealthy psychologically to hate existence, to treat the body as a tomb. It's a vessel. It's a way for us to interact with things, and it needs to be treated as sacred, in my opinion. I'm gonna have to look into the Hephaestus Slavic myth, Blue Owl. I'm gonna have to check that out. Maybe we'll eventually the channel. I'd like to take a look at a lot of the other different pantheons and get into that, but we've already started on this Greco-Egyptian path, so I think I'll stick there for a while until we exhaust all opportunities before we turn into some of the other elements of European myth. But I do love those as well, so we will. And yeah, no turn unstoned. It is your vehicle, so use it, man. Drive that thing. Couple more minutes, and then I gotta skedaddle, guys. But I appreciate everybody coming on and jumping on and talking with me and engaging. Please leave a comment on the video. Do all the clickies of the buttons to help spread the word about the channel. The more and more people we get, the more and more I can do this. The more and more people that we get supporting the channel, the more I can do these lives. So if you like them and want them to keep coming, do what you can to support. I'm not asking much, just spread the word, do what you feel is appropriate. I'll go ahead and play our song again one more time.
beating heart. From ashes we rose, both titan and God. Our nature divided, our souls greatly flawed. But through his blessed son, he sets us all free from passion and suffering for eternity. So judge not the unions of the cosmic king, each divine impact